All right, so this is my MileStone 2 walkthrough. Let me bring up Trello, kind of explain what we were doing. Okay, so there were a number of things that I needed to address for MileStone 2, and there was a couple things that was lingering from MileStone 1. This right here adjusts the spawn generator, only create the player if he does not exist. I did that so that there's really only one instance of the player. And then I, had set up for the scary skeletons to be chasing the player based off of states. And I'll go in and show that. I have the roving NPC move around intelligently and, avoid obstacles. Scary skeleton. Okay, what I spent most of this week on is I completely read my code base. So I added art and threw it into view just so you guys see. I'm also going to, in this card, I'm going to attach the APK and to the link for the YouTube video that is going over right now, as well as an underdog. You can see what it's like. Have here. Okay, so basically what I did, a couple of the issues that already got put in the done. I fixed this bug. The portal X, I fixed that. And this one right here. Okay, so the major issue with the gem recycle was when it's not completely closed. It even exited, but it's not completely closed, and it reruns for the Android lifecycle. Going to redo that. So Android's really happy with that. So I had to rewrite a lot of the code, just out the static references, especially my app manager as I access sounds, maps, and anything unless I had it already floated in async loading, so I could kind of like a load block. So I rewrote the entire base so that I could surround a single instance of the asset manager to load and to pull the assets that I create. And I got rid of any reference to anything holding information. So I still have static bursts like my styles, but everything else actually have an int that I'm installing to create a lot of rewriting of the code from the pre one to one to work smart. I implemented cooled engine so that I customize everything. I also saw a lot for better prepare for the back, a number of things. So I did a dual screen. I set that up in portrait mode. How I was planning on doing, I don't know. Switch it because like the screen would be too small. I also ending up camera so it the borders goes to focal point for every section. The other thing that I did is that I have more data, and let me show. So in my map, I have portal layers. So let me turn this on. Okay, so portal layer. One of the issues I was having was when I wanted to go, say, from the cave to, from the overworld to the cave, set position with player, not recreating, caused a lot of issues. So instead, I redid the map where I have all the areas all in one map, and then I can transform the position. Okay, so this is a portal area right here. So instead of just having a map that I'm going to and that I'm coming from, I'm actually giving the X and Y coordinates that I need to travel to, the camera position that I need to have when I get to that location, the current group of entities that should now be active. I should lerp, which I'm going to try to implement to make it look more like the screen change, and then groups. So this room, this I would just call it a room. This room right here has two entities, not counting me, that are in group one. So when I switch, then group one shall never be active, and then I can respawn group one so that if I go into this area, those entities will be back, respawn for player. If a user ends up playing the game, killing all the enemies in an area and comes back, will be respawned. So the idea is that these are interactive, play good. chop, and then they will eventually rebuild. So every transition to another area has this data, so it will move the player, want them to reposition the camera, and then I have it where it's setting different groups active and not active. This is so I can also optimize, not generating anything for the entire game. I'm only doing it for one. So I kind of show what it looks like. Now, there are a couple issues that I realize that I'll kind of work through. Let me get it so you can see the start of it. And you'll be able to see the loading bar. So now it's loading, it's showing the assets that I loaded. I fixed my, I'm going to shut the music off. I fixed my Redbeard run, the menu screen. I got my credits so that if I click, it's recycling. I hit back and it brings me there. That is one issue that has been occasionally setting up, is that when I catch the back key, it sometimes goes multiple screens. All right, so if I go into new game, this I was planning on putting like kind of like a border image around for the Redbeard run. This is going to be my HUD screen. They're two separate screens, two separate cameras. They're being managed separately. I realize that the screen now looks maybe a little bit too small, so I might end up reconfiguring where this is, if I turn it to the side, this is the screen size, and then maybe this is the HUD right here, or something to that effect. And then just kind of rework it. So I have the snake, once I get far enough away, switches to seeking me, but using raycast collision avoidance. The roving NPC, when I get close enough, he starts talking. I've been testing out doing health. It actually worked. I can have the enemies now. I can actually take health away from things and then have them go into their dying animation. All right, so when I click on transition, so now it loaded the screen to the right. I don't have any way to attack the enemies yet, other than just running into them. So this is, the screens are transitioning. So right before we get into these locations, these rooms, all the entities are non-existent. They're inactive. They get respawned. This is the issue with the respawning. Sometimes it's doing it, sometimes it's not. So I got to double check why. But when I go into a portal area, I'm correctly going to the location that I need to go to. She's activated. And I'm coming back out where I want to. Well, maybe he's not going to be there anymore. So let's go ahead and test out the dungeon. I don't have raycast avoidance set up for the player yet, for him to be a little bit more intelligently avoiding obstacles. I did take off some of the layers of the rest in peace, the grave markers. that those are on below instead of above. It just wasn't generating right. I still have to work with the collision, the raycast, as it makes them a little bit difficult navigating through narrow hallways. But now it should be set up. And then I go back. Okay, so this one didn't get completely set all the way. I'm hitting the portal button as soon as I go through, and it's kicking me back. Okay, so then this one didn't end up hitting it. All right, so let me just kind of walk through the code. All right, so I did basically almost a complete rewrite. Starting at Redbeard Run, this is where I'm actually doing my sprite batch. I'm creating that in the asset manager. That is getting passed to the asset manager. Here I am instantiating only one of each screen instead of multiple, well, just ensuring. So I'm using a hash table to hold each screen. So if it's not null, it's going to create one, and then it's going to pull that or screen in there. So when I want to switch screens, I can pull from the actual screen. Here's where I can set screen. All I have to do is I can call this command anywhere, and if screen already exists, it's going to, if it exists, it's going to create it. It does exist, it's just going to pull from hash table. What do we got it twice? Okay, so here's where I'm instantiating asset manager. I'm doing the screen loads. Some stuff is happening and clicking. So click on new game. It's creating that and everything. It's not running in the background. I'm just using a lot more stuff properly. A little bit. I'm not doing it as much as what I need to be in the main game. But so body generator is still the same. Box 2D location is for my steering. Box 2D raycast detector. That's for use the words for raycast. Camera files is still the same. I just changed my manager to figures. It was a lot easier to type and makes more sense. Game input. I now have it working for single tap. I've been up tap. Still need to figure out why it's not working. Long press is active and my range. So almost all controls implementer, I can have them actually working or doing a test and doing a strong attack. Level collision generator is set up. This is where I am pulling the information from. So after I'm pulling, I'm procedurally building all of the stuff through that I have to do is instantiate this. And pulling all the collisions out of there and just pulling the portals and storing all of that into my data component that's attached to the T for the portals. I have a mapper in here. This is static, but it's not really anything. It's just being used to access components need for when I'm building stuff. Steering presets, basically the same as what I had, other than some tweak with the raycasting and the priority steering. My collision manager, same. Entity manager. This has been completely rebuilt. So instead of doing the switching that I did a different things. Be able to a entity. I need to be able to generate a group of these, and I need to be able to generate everything from app. So what I have is I have my spawn entities pulling from on my map, assigning the information that I need based off of the type of entity that's going to be created. So if the name the board with the spawn is snake or skeleton, then it's going to assign that as the type component. Enemy And then after it's all done, then it's calling this method, which is passing in group. And this group is doing, this is my individual, so it's individually going through each one because that's all part of the for each loop. So this, what's being called, instead of having it separate for entity and rewriting a bunch of stuff, I have a bunch of nested if states and if flags, so that only the components that I want to be created are created those type of entities. So static entity, none of I'm setting, the state components a specific thing. This renderable component, that all of these are not going to get up to touch locations, but my level have a position on it. They all have a touch component. So collision, those are not for anything touch. It's only PCs and for the player. That's what I use for my collision. My asset manager now does asynchronously load, so I'm not blocking any load it. I just have access, so it's using that my loading bar, so we can see it. So that's what still basically the same as what I had. Same with bits. And name screen that's set up. Well, it's not set up for generating the end state. Main menu, that's the same. Main game, become using pooled entities, and what I had a manager that was in the systems is really accurate, and then I had a manager that was holding those maps that I was kind of extracting too much. So I got rid of a lot of the bloat. So now screen instantiate, and then calling my init function, which is setting up the that I need. I have my cameras for each screen, setting those widths and heights, and then I'm calling the initialization for the entities, which is also doing collision center because that's creating entities for static walls and stuff. And I'm doing my system. This I can kind of easily modify stuff. If something's not working, I can change the order if I need to. My update, camera update right here. This is where when I portal, I am taking that information, I'm storing it in my player component and pull that information at the camera update. So I can just change the camera position. Okay, so I set that up and then I can just lock it on. Which is this right here. So I'm not having really any issues. I don't have to recap anymore because focusing specifically only on the squares. The camera is not really outside of just moving to the next position. I'm still running my separate layers. So this is what it looks like for the multiple. So I have two renders. This is the first one for my game screen. And then here's my rendering for the HUD. So that HUD, that's really there as a placeholder, but I can start putting information like the players, things like that, and I display to that where I get it looking all pretty and everything. So my sums, I modified and improved a lot. I now have if the is dying, then that will, after it's finished, that's what's going to set a whole process to them out of the game. My state machine, installing direction, state machine, I combine them. My B2 body render, this working yet. Boundaries, this is what I was doing for killing off players and things like that. If I'm in a different boundary. Collision is now active for NPCs and me, so I can have them act to attacks, move. I'm basic set up so that I can for interacting with picking up and stuff like that. My controlled movement system is working to what I want. It's it is linked to the 5 controls that I need, and it's not back and forth. So before I could get and double tap at the same time, now I'm not getting tap. I need to play around with it, but it's locking to the controls. It's not going to be anything else. So then this is actually where, for doing steering, when I tap location, I actually create an entity really has a position and a type, so that I can do steering with it. I need a box 2D body to do steering. Enemy system, this is set up. This is where I will do the stage, and I'm using stage for type of steering behavior that I want it to do or not to do, based off of the variables, like what I said, like the distance, the amount of miss that the enemy has, the amount of health or aggressiveness, to change in each state, between each state. And then it's similar to NPC system, except the NPC is really doing attack. Evade, though. Position system, same render. Respawn, this is where I can pull the current group and the past group, and I can act on it. If group is that group, then that's what's going to be even drawn on the screen. The past group, that's going to be able to be generated, like respawning that area. I had another system for touch removal to be able to remove those entities that after they've already been arrived at. I was setting up a queue to kind of like a fill and remove their point. So there's a whole bunch of that are stored in the game. So if touch one location, touch another location, and don't actually want to do it up to distract. So because they're not traveling to it anymore. Still working on some bugs on that, but it basically works. Now I don't have it set up, but if I do set it in it's creating some variables if I'm clicking too fast. So when that was working though, so right now, it works fine, but those points, if I don't go to them, they're still there. I'm just rendering, a debug renderer for Box 2D, but I still don't want those to stay there. I do have the pooled engine, so it's not going to create more after a certain point. So all my other components, they've all been rewritten. All the systems, a lot of them are still the same, except now I'm using iterating systems so that I can iterate through every entity based off of the components that they have. That's about it. All right. So I am going to be working on the dragon and the orb assets this week. If we look at Trello, though, I'm not really behind. This is easy to plug and play now. I'll have this done, in a little bit. The player can put up to collect items in an inventory. All I got to do is add data. I have basically that's done. So I just have to create the items to actually do the hacks. And this is ready to set up. See clipping to bunch of map. Okay, so this is done. The only thing that I don't have is having it lerp correctly. I can have the camera lerp and it doesn't settle exactly, and they would have to tweak it. The per lerping ends up hitting the portal buttons when he's not supposed to. So I'll still have to tweak it a little bit, but that's mostly kind of set up. I have parts already done. Can register that I hold the button, and we'll be able to do that. So I have things that it will make backlog a lot easier to do. This week I'll be working on the assets, so all the rest of my sounds. Like an asset, I'm going to implement that. It's going to create the drones and the weapons to be able to collect. So that's basically it. All right. I'm going to post this on here and in Underdog.